I mostly read public domain books here on Glenn Reads Books to You, and they were written a long time ago, so they're usually racist, or sexist, or bigoted, but in there somewhere is a story, and that's why those stories are famous. Other times, I read works from independent authors, and they're delightfully not racist, but they might have adult language or adult situations, like, making sex. So that's your warning, but I'm sure you're grown up enough to handle it. Don't write to me complaining. Oh, thank God I'm finally home. Having to drive my kid all the way from another city in college. Oh, God damn it. All right, fine. Sit down, you little idiot. I was just commenting about how I didn't record an episode last week because I was driving my kid back from college. It's a long, long drive. The kid was sweet. We had a great time in the car. But my God, that was a long goddamn time. And also we hit traffic jams and everything. So, no, I didn't record an episode last week. And screw you. I have my own life. Welcome to the Glenn Reads Books to You mansion. It's a fun little bit where I pretend to live in a mansion and not just recording in my basement. This is where I read the hottest public domain books and short stories. This week we're going to keep reading Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. Hey, you want to learn about the author? Sure. I mean, I stole all this from Wikipedia. At least take the time to listen to it. Robert Louis Stevenson was born the 13th of November, 1850, and died the 3rd of December, 1894. Didn't seem that long. Was a Scottish novelist, essayist, poet, and travel writer. He's ahead of his time. He is best known for works such as Treasure Island, The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Kidnapped, and A Child's Garden of Verses. What the hell is in that book? Born and educated in Edinburgh, Stevenson suffered from serious bronchial trouble for much of his life, and he continued to write prolifically and travel widely in defiance of his poor health. He settled in Samoa, where, alarmed at increasing European and American influence in the South Sea Islands, his writing turned from romance and adventure fiction toward the darker realism. He died of a stroke in his island home in 1894 at the age of 44. Want to hear some fun facts they stole from mentalfloss.com? Sure. That'll waste time before we hear the grandfather clock, which tells me to shut up, start reading the story. The idea came from a map Stevenson drew. Stuck inside one rainy summer day on the Scottish Highlands, Robert Louis Stevenson joined his stepson, Lloyd, at the easel and began drawing pictures. Stevenson sketched an island that resembled a fat dragon standing up. Like Pete's Dragon, I imagine, as he would later call it in the novel, and began populating it with harbors, hills, and bays. Soon, a story began to take shape, along with the names like Jim Hawkins, Squire Trelawney, Billy Bones, and Captain Smollett. The next thing I knew, Stevenson wrote, I had some papers before me and was writing out a list of chapters. Next one, Stevenson was 31 years old, jobless and financially dependent on his father. Stevenson had been a sickly child who developed weak lungs as an adult, most likely through a congenital disease like sarcoidosis. All right, whatever. This meant that he was constantly traveling in search of a drier climate beyond his smoky, rain-soaked Scottish hometown of Edinburgh. He spent time in Northern California, New York, the French Riviera, and at the end of his life, Tahiti and Samoa. His father, a lighthouse engineer, was disappointed that his son didn't follow his footsteps, but he still served as his patron and was an enthusiastic collaborator on Treasure Island. I can't imagine you can be a lighthouse engineer and make enough money to pay for your son's illness. And his travels. Well, with that, let's head downstairs. Well, there you go. Why don't you get yourself settled? Ever since I moved upstairs with my recording equipment, airplanes play a big factor in my podcast now. At the sign of the spyglass. When I had done breakfasting, the squire gave me a note addressed to John Silver. At the sign of the spyglass, and he told me I should easily find the place by following the line of the docks and keeping a bright lookout for a little tavern with a large brass telescope for a sign? I set off, overjoyed at this opportunity to see some more of the ships and seamen, and packed my way among a great crowd of people in carts and bales, for the dock was now at its busiest, until I found the tavern in question. That was a bright enough little place for entertainment. The sign was newly painted, and the windows had neat red curtains. And the floor was cleanly sanded. And there was a street on each side, an open door on both, which made the large, low room pretty clear to see in spite of the clouds of tobacco smoke. The customers were mostly, seafaring men, and they talked, burp, so loudly that I hung at the door, almost afraid to enter. As I was waiting, a man came out of a side room, and at a glance I was sure he must be Long John. His left leg was cut off close by the hip, gross, and under that left shoulder he carried a crutch, which he managed with wonderful dexterity, hopping about it like a bird. He was very tall and strong, with a face as big as a ham. Plain and pale, but intelligent and smiling. Indeed, he seemed to be the most cheerful of spirits, whistling as he moved about among the tables with a merry word or a slap on the shoulder for the more favored of his guests. Now, to tell you the truth, from the very first mention of Long John in Squire Trelawney's letter, I had taken a fear in my mind that he might prove to be the very one-legged sailor whom I had watched for so long at the old Benbow. But one look at the man before me was enough. I had seen the captain and Black Dog and the blind man Pew, and I had thought I knew what a buccaneer was like. A very different creature, according to me, from this clean and pleasant-tempered landlord. I plucked up the courage at once, crossed the threshold, and walked straight up to the man where he stood, propped on his crutch, talking to a customer. Mr. Silver, sir? I asked, holding out the note. Yes, my lad, said he. Such is my name, to be sure. And who may you be? And then, as he saw the squire's letter, he seemed to give me something almost like a start. Oh, he said, quite loud, and offering his hand. I see. You're a new cabin boy. Pleased I am to see you. Then he took my hand in his large, firm grasp. Just one of the customers at the far side suddenly rose and made for the door. I was close by him, and he was out in the street in a moment. But his hurry had attracted my notice, and I recognized him at a glance. Ow! It was the towel-faced man, wanting two fingers, who had come first to the Admiral Benbow. Oh, I cried. Stop him! It's Black Dog. I don't care two coppers who he is, cried Silver, but he hasn't paid his score. Harry, run and catch him. One of the others who was nearest the door leapt up and started in pursuit. If he were Admiral Hawke, he shall pay his score, cried Silver. Then, relinquishing my hand, who'd you say he was? He asked. Black what? Dog, sir, said I. He has Mr. Trelawney not told you of the Buccaneers? He was one of them. Oh, so, cried Silver. In my house? Ben, run and help Harry. One of those swabs, was he? What were you drinking with him, Morgan? Step up here. The man for whom he called Morgan, the old gray-haired, mahogany-faced sailor who came forward pretty sheepishly, rolling his quid. Now, Morgan, said Long John very sternly, you never clapped your eyes on Black Dog before, did you? Now? Not I, sir, said Morgan with a salute. You didn't know his name, did you? No, sir. By the powers, Tom Morgan, it's good for you, exclaimed the landlord. If you had been mixed up with the like of that, you'd never have put another foot in my house. You may lay to that. And what was he saying to you? I don't rightly know, sir. Do you call that a head on your shoulders or a blessed dead eye? Cried Long John. Don't rightly know, don't you? Perhaps you don't happen to rightly know who you was speaking to, perhaps? Come now, he was jawing. Verges, captains, ships. Pipe up, what was it? We was a-talking of keel-hauling, answered Morgan. Keel-hauling, was you? And a mighty suitable thing, too. And you may lay to that. Get back to your place for a lubber, Tom. And then As Morgan rolled back to his seat, Silver added to me in a confidential whisper that was very flattering, as I thought, oh, he's quite an honest man, Tom Morgan, only stupid. And now, and he ran on aloud, let's see, Black Dog? No, I don't know the name, not I, yet I kind of think I've seen the swab. He used to come here with a blind beggar. He used... All right, whatever. That he did, you may be sure, said I. I knew that blind man, too. His name was Pew? It was, cried Silver, now quite excited. Pew! Oh, that were his name for certain. Oh, and he looked like a shark, he did. If we had run down Black Dog now, there'll be news for Captain Trelawney. Oh, Ben's a good runner. A few seamen run better than Ben. Oh, he should run him down, hand him over by the powers. He talked keel hauling, did he? I'll, in all caps, keel haul him. All at the same time he was jerking out these phrases as he was stumping up and down the tavern on his crutch, slapping tables with his hand, and giving such a show of excitement as would have convinced old Bailey Judge or a Bow Street runner. My suspicions had been thoroughly reawakened on finding Black Dog at the Spyglass, and I watched the cook narrowly. Oh, but he was too deep and too ready and too clever for me. And by the time the two men had come back out of breath and confessed that they had lost track of the crowd and had been scolded like thieves, and I should have gone bail for the innocence of Long John Silver. See now, Hawkins, he said. Oh, here's a blessed hard thing on a man like now, innit? There's Captain Trelawney. What does he think? Here I have a confounded son of a Dutchman sitting in my own house drinking of my own rum. Oh, here comes and tells plain of it. And here I give him all the slip before my blessed deadlights. Now, Hawkins, you do me justice with the captain. You're a lad, you are, and you're as smart as paint. What does that mean? You're as smart as paint. I see that when you first come in, now here's what it is. What I could do. Oh, this old bimber I hobble on. When I was an A.B. Master Mariner, I'd have come up alongside him, hand over hand, and broached him into a brace of old chicks. I would, but now... And then... all of a sudden, he stopped, and his jaw dropped as though he had remembered something. The score, he burst out. Oh, 3 goes of rum. Why, shiver my timbers if I had forgotten my score. And falling on a bench, he laughed until the tears ran down his cheeks, and I could not help joining. Oh, we laughed together, peal after peal, until the tavern rang again. Why, what a precious old sea calf I am, he said at last, wiping his cheeks. Oh, and you should get on well, Hawkins, for I'll take my Davy. I should be rated ship's boy, but come now, stand by, go about. This won't do. Duty is duty. That's D-O-O-T-Y. Like duty, like your job, or duty like poop? Duty is duty, messmates, and I'll put on my own cockerel hat. I'm going to look up duty. I need to know what this is supposed to mean. There's nothing on Wikipedia. There's nothing for translation. There's nothing from the dictionary. I'm going to say poop is poop, messmates. And I'll put on my own cockerel hat and step along of you to Captain Trelawney and report this here affair. For mind you, it is serious, young Hawkins. Oh, and neither you nor me has come out of it with what I should make so bold as to call credit. Nor you neither, says you. Not smart, none of us pair are smart, but dash my buttons. That's a phrase I got to remember for later. That was a good un about my score. He began to laugh again. Oh, and that was so heartily that though I did not see the joke as he did, I was again obliged to join him in the mirth. And on our little walk along the quays, he made himself the most interesting companion, telling me about the different ships that we passed by, their rig, the tonnage, and nationality, explaining the work that was going forward, how one was discharging, another was taking cargo, and the third was making ready for sea. And every now and then telling me some little anecdote of ships or seamen or repeating nautical phrase till I had learned it perfectly. Oh, I began to see that there was one of the best possible shipmates. When we got to the inn, the squire and Dr. Livesey were seated together, finishing a quart of ale with toast in it before she should go aboard the schooner on a visit of inspection. Long John told the story from first to last with a great deal of spirit. Oh, and most perfect truth. That was how it were. Now, weren't it, Hawkins? He would say. Now and again, I could always bear him out entirely. The two gentlemen regretted that Black Dog had got away. Oh, but we all agreed there was nothing to be done. And after he had been complimented, Long John took up his crutch and departed. All hands aboard by 4 this afternoon, shouted Squire after him. Aye, aye, sir, cried the cook in the passage. Well, Squire, said Dr. Livesey, I don't put much faith in your discoveries as a general thing, but I will say this. John Silver suits me. The man is a perfect trump. What? Like the card? Now I gotta look this up. What was trump back then? Bridge, whist, and similar game cards. It's just cards. All right, it's a perfect trump card, declared the squire. And now, added the doctor, Jim may come on board with us. May he not? Oh, to be sure he may, says the squire. Take your hat, Hawkins, and we shall see the ship. Up next, Powder and Arms. God, I love these chapters. They're short and punchy. Short and punchy, just the way I like all my chapters. The Hispaniola lay some way out, and we went under the figureheads and round the sterns of many other ships. And their cables sometimes grated underneath our keel, and sometimes swung above us. At last, however, we got alongside, and there met and saluted as we stepped aboard by the mate, Mr. Arrow, a brown old sailor with earrings in his ears, huh? And a squint. He and the squire were very thick and friendly, but I soon observed that things were not the same between Mr. Trelawney and the captain. This last was a sharp-looking man who seemed angry with everything on board, and was soon to tell us why, for we had hardly got down in the cabin when the sailor followed us. Burp, Captain Smollett, sir, axing to speak with you. Oh, God, don't do this. I hate when I read a story and they start trying to phonetically spell out, like, British slang, and it drives me nuts. I'm hoping that doesn't happen here. Said he, I'm always at the captain's orders. Show him in, said the squire. The captain, who was close behind his messenger, entered at once and shut the door behind him. Well, Captain Smollett, what have you to say? Well, I hope. All ship-shape and seaworthy? Well, sir, said the captain, better speak plain, I believe, even at the risk of offense. Oh, I don't like this cruise, and I don't like the men. I don't like my officer. That's short and sweet. Well, perhaps, sir, you don't like the ship? Inquired the squire, very angry as I could see. I can't speak of that, sir. Has not ever seen her tried, said the captain. She seems a clever craft, more than I can't say. Possibly, sir, you may not like your employer either, says the squire, but here Dr. Livesey cut in. Stay a bit, said he. Stay a bit. Oh, no use of such questions as that, but to produce ill feeling. The captain has said too much, or he has said too little, and I'm bound to say that I require an explanation of his words. But you don't, you say, like this cruise. Now, why? Now it's engaged, sir, and what we call the sealed orders to sail this ship for that gentleman where he should bid me, said the captain. So far, so good, but now I find that every man before the mast knows more than I do, and I don't call that fair. Now, do you? No, said Dr. Livesey, I don't. Next, said the captain, I learned that we're going after treasure. Hear it from my own hands, mind you. Now, treasure, it's ticklish work. And I don't like treasure voyages on any account. And I don't like them, above all, when they are secret. And when, begging your pardon, Mr. Trelawney, the secret has been told to a parrot. What, Silver's parrot? Asked the squire. It's a way of speaking, said the captain. Blabbed, I mean. It's my belief neither of you gentlemen know what you're about, but I'll tell you my way of it. Life or death, and a close run. Well, that's all clear, and I dare say true enough, replied Dr. Livesey. We take the risk, but we're not so ignorant as you believe us. Next, you'll say that you like the crew, huh? Are they not good seamen? Well, I don't like them, sir, returned the Captain Smollett, and I think that I should have had the choosing at my own hands, if you go to that. Well, perhaps you should, replied the doctor. My friend should, perhaps. Haven't taken you along with them, but the slight, if there be one, was unintentional. And now you don't like Mr. Arrow? Oh, I don't, sir. I believe he's a good seaman. But not, he's too free with the crew to be a good officer. A mate should keep himself to himself, and I shouldn't drink with the men before mast. Do you mean he drinks? Cried the squire. No, sir, replied the captain. He's too familiar. Well, now, and short of the long of it, Captain, asked the doctor, tell us what you want. Well, gentlemen, are you determined to go on this cruise? Like iron, answered the squire. Well, very good, said the captain. Then, as you've heard me very patiently saying things that I should not prove, hear me a few words more. They are putting the powder and the arms in the forehold. Now, you have a good place under the cabin. Why not put them there? First point. Then you are bringing 4 of your own people with you. Oh, they tell me some of them are to be berthed forward. What does that mean? I'm not going to look it up. Why not give them the berths here beside the cabin? The second point, I guess just where they're staying. I don't know. Any more? Asked Mr. Trelawney. One more, said the captain. Oh, there's been too much blabbing already. Well, fair too much, agreed the doctor. Oh, and I'll tell you what I've heard of, continued the Captain Smollett, that you have a map of an island, and that there's crosses on the map to show where treasure is. Oh, and that the island lies, and then he named the latitude and longitude exactly. I've never told that, cried the squire, to a soul. The hands know it, sir, returned the captain. Livesey, that must have been you or Hawkins, cried the squire. Well, it doesn't matter much who it is, replied the doctor, and I can see that neither he or the captain paid much regard to Dr. Trelawney's protestations. Neither did I, to be sure. He was so loose a talker. And yet, in this case, I believe he was probably right that nobody had told the situation of the island. Well, gentlemen, concluded the captain, I don't know who has this map, but I make it a point. It shall be kept secret even from me and Mr. Arrow. Otherwise, I would ask you to let me resign. Oh, I see, said the doctor. You wish us to keep this matter dark, and to keep a garrison of a stern part of the ship, manned with my own friends' own people, and provided with all arms and powder on board. Oh, in other words, you fear mutiny. Sir, said Captain Smollett, with no intention to take offense, I deny your right to put words into my mouth. No, Captain, sir, would this be justified in going to sea at all if it had ground enough to say that? And as for Mr. Arrow, I believe him thoroughly honest. Some of the men are the same, all to be for what I know, but I am reasonable for the ship's safety. I don't know, and the life every man jack aboard her, and I see things going, as I think, not quite right. And I ask, Bert, you to take certain precautions, or let me resign my berth. That is all. Captain Smollett, began the doctor with a smile. Did you ever hear the fable of the mountain and the mouse? Oh, what a waste of time. You'll excuse me, I dare say, but you remind me of that fable. When you came in here, I'll stake my wig. You meant more than this. Doctor, said the captain, you are smart. But when I came in here, I meant to get discharged. I had no thought of Mr. Trelawney would hear a word. Well, no more I would, cried the squire. I had, Livesey, not been here, I should have seen you to the deuce. And as it is, I've heard you, and will do as you desire, but I think the worse of you. Well, that's as you please, sir, said the captain. You'll find I do my duty. Oh, with that he took his leave. Trelawney, said the doctor, contrary to all my notions, I believe that you have managed to get 2 honest men on board with you. That man and John Silver. Now, Silver, if you like, cried the squire, but as for that intolerable humbug, I declare I think his conduct unmanly, unsailorly, and downright un-English. Oh, well, says the doctor, we shall see. When we came on deck, the men had begun already to take out the arms and the powder, yo-hoing at their work, while the captain and Mr. Arrow stood by superintending. The new arrangement was quite to my liking. The whole schooner had been overhauled. 6 berths had been made astern. What does that mean? I'm looking up berths. Is berths like a room you stay in? A ship's allotted place at a wharf or dock. A fixed bed or bunk on a ship. That's what I thought they meant. Train or other means of transport. Often in sports context. Oh, sports context. A situation or position in an organization event. Today's victory clinched a berth for the Orioles in the playoffs. Wow. I got to use that more often, especially when I talk to my friends about sports, which I know nothing about. 6 berths had been made astern out of what had been the after part of the main hold. Oh, and this set of cabins was only joined to the galley and the forecastle by a sparred passage on the port side. I know nothing about these terms, and has been originally meant that the captain, Mr. Arrow, Hunter, Joyce, the doctor, and the squire were to occupy these 6 berths. Now, Rudith and I were to get 2 of them, and Mr. Arrow and the captain were to sleep on the deck of the companion, and he had been enlarged on each side till you could almost have called it a round house. Very low it was still, of course, but there was room to swing 2 hammocks. And even the mate seemed pleased with the arrangement. Even he, perhaps, had been doubtful as the crew, but is only a guess, for as you shall hear, we had not long the benefit of his opinion. Well, there's foreshadowing. We were all hard at work, changing the powder in the berths, when the last man or 2, and Long John along with them, came off in a shore boat. The cook came up the side like a monkey for cleverness, and as soon as he saw what he was doing, "Oh, so-ho, mates," said he, "what's this?" "We're a change in the powder, Jack," answers one. "Why, the powders," cried Long John. "If we do, we'll miss the morning tide." "My orders," said the captain shortly. "Oh, you may go below, my man. Hands will want supper." "Aye, aye, sir," ordered the cook, touching his forelock, and disappeared at once in the direction of the galley. "That's a good man, Captain," said the doctor. "Oh, very likely, sir," replied Captain Smollett. "Easy with that, men, easy." He ran on to the fellows who were shifting the powder, and then suddenly observing me examining the swivel, we carried amidships a long brass nine. "Here, you ship's boy," he cried. Out o' that. Off with you to the cook and get some work." And then I was hurrying off. I heard him say, quite loudly to the doctor, "I'll have no favorites on my ship." I assure you I was quite the squire's way of thinking, and hated the captain deeply. Next chapter, the voyage. All that night, we were in a great bustle, getting things stowed in their place, and boatfuls of the squire's friends, Mr. Blandy and the like, coming off to wish him a good voyage and a safe return. Burp. We never had a night at the Admiral Benbow when I had half the work, and I was dog-tired then, a little before dawn. And Boatswain sounded his pipe, and the crew began to man the capstan bars. All right, whatever. I'm not looking that one up. Oh, I might have been twice as weary, yet I would not have left the deck. All was so new and interesting to me. Oh, the brief commands, the shrill note of the whistle, the men bustling to their places, and the glimmer of the ship's lanterns. "Now, barbecue tip a stave," cried one voice. "The old one," cried another. "Aye, aye, mate," said Long John, who was standing by with his crutch under his arm, and at once broke out in the air in words I knew so well. 15 men on a dead man's chest." And then the whole crew bore the chorus, "Yo-ho-ho," and a bottle of rum. And the third, ho, drove the bars before them with the will. Even at that exciting moment, it carried me back to the old Admiral Benbow in a second. And I seemed to hear the voice of the captain piping in the chorus. But soon the anchor was short up, and soon it was hanging, dripping at the bows. Soon the sails began to draw, and the land and the shipping flit by on either side. And before I could lie down to snatch an hour of slumber, the Hispaniola had begun her voyage to the Isle of Treasure. Well, I'm not going to relate the voyage detail. It's fairly prosperous. The ship proved to be a good ship, and the crew were capable seamen, and the captain thoroughly understood his business. But before we came the length of Treasure Island, or 2 or 3 things had happened which required to be known. Mr. Arrow, first of all, turned out even worse than the captain had feared. He had no command among the men, and the people did what they pleased with them. But that was by no means the worst of it, for after a day or 2 at sea, he began to appear on the deck with a hazy eye. Oh, red cheeks. A stuttering tongue, and the other marks of drunkenness. Time after time, he was ordered below in disgrace. Sometimes he fell and cut himself. Sometimes he lay all day long in his little bunk on one side of his companion. And sometimes, for a day or two, he'd be almost sober and then attend to his work, at least passably. In the meantime, we could never make out where he got the drink. That was the ship's mystery. Watch him as we pleased, we could do nothing to solve it. And when we asked him to his face, he would only laugh as if he were drunk, and then he would, as if he were sober, deny solemnly that he ever tasted anything but water. He was not only useless as an officer, but a bad influence amongst the men. Oh, but it was as plain as the rate that he must soon kill himself outright. So nobody was much surprised, nor very sorry, when one dark night, with a head sea, he disappeared entirely, was seen no more. Overboard, said the captain. Well, gentlemen, that saves us some trouble putting him in irons. But there we were, without a mate. And it was necessary, of course, to advance one of the men, the boatswain, Job Anderson. He was the likeliest man on board, and though he kept his old title, he served in a way as mate to Mr. Trelawney and had followed the sea. And his knowledge made him very useful, for he often took his watch to himself in easy weather. And he was, and the coxswain. What is a coxswain? I'm looking this up. The steersman of the ship's boat. All right, fine. Israel Hands was a careful, wildly old, experienced seaman who could be trusted at a pinch with almost anything. He was a great confidant of Long John Silver, and so the mention of his name leads me on to speak of our ship's cook, Barbecue, as the man called him. Aboard ship, he carried his crutch by a lanyard around his neck to have both hands as free as possible, and it was something to see him wedge the foot of the crutch against the bulkhead and propped against it, yielding it to every movement of the ship. Get on with his cooking, and like someone safe ashore. Still more strange was it to see him in the heaviest of weather across the deck. He had a line or two rigged up to help him across the widest spaces. Long John's earrings, they were called, and he would hand himself from one place or another, now using the crutch, now trailing it alongside by the lanyard as quickly as another man could walk. And yet some of the men who had sailed with him before expressed their pity to see him so reduced. He's no common man, Barbecue, said one coxswain to me. He had a good schooling in his young days. He could speak like a book, was so minded and brave. Oh, a lion's nothing alongside of the Long John. I've seen him grapple for and knock their heads together, him, unarmed. All the crew respected and even obeyed him. He had a way of talking to each and doing everybody some particular service. To me, he was unweariedly kind. And always glad to see me in the galley, which he kept as clean as a new pin. The dishes hanging up burnished in his parrot's cage in one corner. Come away, Hawkins, he'd say. Come and have a yarn with John. Nobody more welcome than yourself, my son. Sit you down and hear the news. Here, Captain Flint. I calls my parrot Captain Flint, after the famous buccaneer. Here's Captain Flint predicting success in our voyage. Was it you, Captain? And the parrot would say with great rapidity, pieces of eight, pieces of eight, pieces of eight, till you wondered there was not out of breath. Or till John threw his handkerchief over the cage. Now that bird, he would say, is maybe 200 years old, Hawkins. And they live forever mostly, and if anyone's ever seen more wickedness, it must be the devil himself. Oh, she sailed with England, the great captain's England, the pirate. She's been at Madagascar, and Malabar, and Suriname, I don't know, and Providence, and Portobello. Oh, she was at the fishing up at the wrecked plate ships. It's there she learned pieces of eight. It's a little wonder. 350,000 of them. Hawkins, she was at the boarding of the Viceroy and the Indies out of Goa. This was, look to you, you might think she was a babby. You might think she was a babby. I'm guessing baby. I'm not looking that one up. But you smelt powder, didn't you, Captain? Stand by to go about, the parrot would scream. Well, it seems like a good place as any to take a little break. Why don't we, I don't know, get out of this stuffy library, and why don't we head down to some place with a little more fresh air? A little more cleaner, a little more cooler. Let's go down to the basement where I can play my guitar for you and tell you about the latest books coming from Penguin Random House. Go on, get. Well, there you go. Stop being so nervous. Huh? It's fine down here. It's comfortable and it's fine. Asking someone to come to your basement is normal. Why don't you just sit there underneath that naked light bulb with that folding chair as I stand underneath this naked light bulb and play my guitar for you. Huh? Yes. What you gonna do with that duck? And other provocations. 2006 to 2012 by Seth Godin. Burp. Want to learn about it? Sure. Made for dipping into again and again. What You Gonna Do With That Duck brings together the very best of Seth Godin's acclaimed blog and a classic for fans both old and new. Getting your ducks in a row is a fine thing to do, but deciding what you're going to do with that duck is far more important issue. Seth Godin is famous for his best-selling books, such as Purple Cow, and cool entrepreneurial ventures such as Squidoo and the Domino Project. But to millions of loyal readers, he's best known for the daily burst of insight he provides every morning, rain or shine, via Seth's blog. Since he started blogging in the early 1990s. Oh, God bless him. Early 1990s? Who the fuck was on the internet in the early 1990s? All right, fine, whatever. Do you just like his blog was just like a piece of paper he like stapled on a telephone pole? He has written more than 2 million words and shaped the way we think about marketing, leadership, careers, innovation, creativity, and more. Much of his writing is inspirational and some is incendiary. Collected here are 6 years of his best, most entertaining, and most poignant blog posts, plus a few bonus ebooks. From thoughts on how to treat your customers to telling stories and spreading ideas, Godin pushes us to think smarter, dream bigger, and write better, and speak more honestly. Highlights include a marketing lesson from the apocalypse. Oh, that sounds delicious. No, everything is not going to be okay. Oh, God, that sounds sassy. Organized bravery. Yeah, seems practical. Choose your customers. Choose your future. I love that. Paying attention to the attention economy. Oh, what's the attention economy? I can't wait to learn more. Bandits and philanthropists. Godin writes to get under our skin. That's one of his highlights? Okay, whatever. He wants us to stand up and do something remarkable. Oh, God bless him for challenging me. Outside the standards of the industrial system that raised us. He gets it. He gets what the rest of us are dealing with down here in the dirt. Seth Godin is the author of 13 international bestsellers that have changed the way people think about marketing. Oh, thank God. I can't wait to read this. The ways ideas spread. Leadership and change, including permission marketing, Purple Cow, All Marketers Are Liars, The Dip, and Tribes. He is the CEO of Squidoo. This is so fucking annoying. And a very popular lecturer. Oh, good. I'm sure that costs thousands of dollars to go see him just lecture. His blog is the most influential business blog in the world and constantly one of the 100 most popular blogs on any subject. Okay, well, weirdly, it didn't tell us a whole lot, except I guess if you're in marketing, this book's going to mean something to you, but it's also supposed to be for all the rest of us somehow. I don't know. It just sounds like another asshole trying to tell you how you're going to make money, even though he would never do that, or else he wouldn't make the money that you're making. What you going to do with that duck? And Other Provocations, 2006-2012 by Seth Godin. Category, business, self-improvement, and inspiration. It's a paperback for $24, coming out May 14th. From Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Bookshop.org, Hudson Booksellers, Powell's, Target, and you know if it ends up in the hallowed aisles of this certain store. And all the middle-class, lower-middle-class people that shop there would see this book, and suddenly they all become incredibly wealthy, which completely ruins our economy. Elon Musk literally can't pay his rent on one of his villas, and everything is just falling apart. And you can thank Seth Godin when people discover this in the aisles of Walmart. Well, with that, why don't we go back upstairs? Why you look all creeped out? Oh, good, you're back. I didn't think you were going to come back. You look so nervous down in the basement. It's not that bad. It's fine. I just tell you about the latest upcoming book from Penguin Random House, so I play guitar to you underneath the naked light bulbs. Why do you get so upset? Anyways, let's continue. She's a handsome craft, she is, the cook would say, and give her sugar from his pocket. And then the bird would peck at the bars and swear straight on, passing belief for wickedness. There, John would add, you can't touch pitch and not be mucked, lad. Don't know what any of that means. Here, this poor old innocent bird o' mine swearing blue fire and none the wiser. And you may lay to that. Oh, she would swear the name, in a manner of speaking, before Chaplain. And John would touch his forelock with a solemn way that he had made me think that he was the best of men. In the meantime, the squire and Captain Smollett were still on pretty distant terms with one another. The squire made no bones about the matter. I despised the captain. The captain, on his part, never spoke, but when he was spoken to. And then sharp and short and dry, and not a word wasted. He owned, when driven into a corner, that he seemed to have been wrong about the crew, and some of them were as brisk as he wanted to see all that had behaved fairly well. As for the ship, he had taken a downright fancy to her. Oh, she'll lie point nearer in the wind than a man has a right to expect of his own married wife. Sir, but he would add, all I say is, we're not going home again, and I don't like the cruise. The squire at this would turn away and march up and down the deck, chin in the air. A trifle more of that man, he would say, and I shall explode. Well, we had some heavy weather, which only proved the qualities of the Hispaniola, in all caps. Every man on board seemed well content, and they must have been hard to please if they had been otherwise. For it is my belief that there is never a ship's company so spoiled since Noah put to sea. Double grog was going on, the least excuse, and there was duff on odd days. As, for instance, if the squire heard it was any man's birthday, and always a barrel of apples standing broached in the waist for anyone to help himself if he had a fancy. Never knew good come of it yet, the captain said to Dr. Livesey. Spoil forecastle hands make devils, that's my belief. But good did come of the apple barrel, as you shall hear. More foreshadowing for children. For if it had not been for that, we should have had no note of warning, and might have all perished by the hands of treachery. This is how it came about. We had run up the trades to get the wind out of the island as we were after, and I'm not allowed to be more plain, and now we were running down for it with a bright lookout day and night. It was about the last day of our outward voyage by the largest computation. Sometime that night, or latest before noon of the morrow, we should sight the Treasure Island. And we were heading south-southwest, and we had a steady breeze, a beam, and a quiet sea. The Hispaniola, in all caps, rolled steadily, dipping her bowsprit now and then with a whiff of spray, and was drawing aloft and everyone was in the bravest spirits because we were now so near an end of our first part of the adventure. Now, just after sundown, when all my work was over, and I was on my way to my berth, it occurred to me that I should, I should like an apple. I ran on deck. The watch was all forward, looking up for an island. The man at the helm was watching the luff of the sail and whistling away gently to himself, and that was the only sound excepting the swish of the sea against the bows and around the sides of the ship. As I got bodily into the apple barrel, that seems weird. You want to steal an apple, so you climb inside the entire barrel. And found that there was scarce an apple left. Well, that's the reason why I got inside. But sitting down there in the dark, what with the sound of the waters and the rocking movement of the ship, I had either fallen asleep, was on the point of doing so, when a heavy man sat down with a rather clash close by. The barrel shook as he leaned his shoulders against it, and I was just about to jump up when the man began to speak. It was Silver's voice, and before I had heard a dozen words, I would not have shown myself for all the world, but lay there, trembling and listening, in the extreme of fear and curiosity. For, and this has been highlighted by 9 people on my Kindle, from these dozen words I understood that the lives of all the honest men aboard depends upon me alone. The next chapter, creatively enough, what I heard in the apple barrel. No, not I, said Silver. Flint was captain. I was quartermaster along with my timber leg. Oh, the same broadside I lost my leg. Old Pule lost his deadlights. I was a master surgeon. Him that amputated me, out of college and all, Latin by the bucket, and not what that, but he was hanged like a dog and sun-dried like the rest at Corso Castle. Burp. That was Robert's men, and come to the changing names of their ships, Royal Fortune and so on. Oh, now, what a ship was christened. So let her stay, I says. So it was with the Cassandra as brought us all safe home from Malabar after England took the Viceroy of the Indies, and it was with the old Walrus, in all caps, Flint's old ship, as I was seen amuck with the red blood and fit to sink with gold. Ah, cried another voice. That of the youngest hand on board, and evidently full of admiration. He was the flower of the flock, was Flint. Davis was a man, too, by all accounts, said Silver. Oh, I never sailed along with him. First with England, then with Flint. Oh, that's my story. But now here, of my own account, in a manner of speaking, I laid by 900 safe from England, and 2,000 after Flint. Oh, that ain't bad for a man before the mast all was safe in the bank. Tain't earning now, it's saving does it. You may later that. Where's all England's men now? I don't know. Where's Flint's? Why, most of them on board here, and glad to get the duff. Been begging before that, some on 'em. Old Pugh, as he had lost his sight, might have thought shame. Spends £1,200 a year like a lord in Parliament. Where's he now? Well, he's dead now, under hatches. But for 2 years before that, shiver my timbers, the man was starving and begged, and he stole, and he cutthroats, and starved at that by the powers. Well, it ain't much use after all, said the young seaman. Tain't much use for fools, you may lay to that. That nor nothing, cried Silver. But now, you look here. You're young, you are, and you're as smart as paint. I don't get that phrase. I see that when I set my eyes upon you, I'll talk to you like a man. You may imagine how I felt when I heard this abominable old rogue addressing another in the same very words of flattery as he used on myself. I think, if I had been able, that I would have killed him through the barrel. Meantime, he ran on, little supposing that he was overheard. Here it is about the gentlemen of fortune. Oh, they lives rough. Oh, they risks swinging. They eat and drink like fighting cocks. When a cruise is done, oh, why, it's hundreds of pounds instead of hundreds of farthings in their pockets. Now the most goes for rum and a good fling. And the sea again in their shirts. That's not, of course, that I lay. I puts it all away. Some here, some there, and none too much anywhere. And by reason of suspicion, I'm 50, mark you. Once back from my cruise, I set up gentlemen in earnest. Time enough, too, says you. Ah, but I've lived easy in the meantime. Never denied myself, nothing my heart desires, and slept soft and ate dainty all my days. But when at sea, how did I begin? Before the mast like you. Well, said the other, but all the other money's gone now, ain't it? You daren't show face at Bristol after this. Why? Where you might suppose it was? Asked Silver derisively. At Bristol, in banks and places, answered his companion. It were, said the cook. It were when we weighed anchor, but my old missus has it all by now, and the spyglass is solid lease, and goodwill by rigging. The old girl's off to meet me, and I would tell you where, for I trust you, but it'd make jealousy among the mates. Can you trust your missus? Asked the other. Gentlemen of fortune, returned the cook, usually trust little among themselves, and right they are. You may lay into it, but I have a way with me, I have. When a mate brings a slip on the cable, one knows me, I mean, it won't be in the same world with old John. There was some of that fear to Pew and some of that fear to Flint. But Flint was his own self when he feared to be. Feared he was, and proud. Oh, they was the roughest crew afloat. And was Flint's. The devil himself would have feared to go to sea with them. Well, now I tell you, I'm not a boasting man. And you've seen yourself how easy I keep company. Well, when I was quartermaster, lambs wasn't a word for Flint's old buccaneers. Ow, you may be sure of yourself, an old John ship. Well, I'll tell you now, replied the lad, if I didn't have half a quarter of the job till I had this talk with you, John, but there's my hand on it now. And a brave lad you are, and smart too, answered Silver, shaking hands so heartily that the barrel shook, and my finer figurehead for a gentleman of fortune I never clapped my eyes on. By this time, I'd begun to understand the meanings of their terms. By gentlemen of fortune, in quotes, they plainly meant neither more nor less than a common pirate. And the little scene that I had overheard was the last act in corruption of one of the honest hands, perhaps of one of the last left aboard. But on this point I was soon to be relieved, for Silver, giving a little whistle, and a third man strolled up and sat down by the party. Dick's square, said Silver. Oh, I'd know Dick was square, returned the voice of the coxswain, Israel Hands. Oh, he's no fool, is Dick. And he turned his quid, and spat. But look here, he went on. Here's what I want to know, Barbecue. How long are we going to stand off on this blessed bumboat? I've had most enough, Captain Smollett. He's hazed me long enough, by thunder, and I want to go to that cabin, I do. I want their pickles and wine. I love that the affluent people on the ship are eating pickles and drinking wine. Sounds really wet. Israel, said Silver, your head ain't much account, nor ever was, but you'll be able to hear, I reckon, leastways your ears are big enough. Now, here's what I say. You'll birth forward, and you'll live hard. And you'll speak soft, and you'll keep sober, till I give the word, and you may lay to that, my son. Well, I don't say no, do I? Growled the coxswain. What I say is when. That's what I say. When? By powers, cried Silver. Well, now, if you want to know, then I'll tell you when. The last moment I can manage. That's when. Here's the first-rate seaman, Captain Smollett. Sails the blessed ship for us, and there's the squire and the doctor with the map and such, and I know, where it is, do I? No more than you, says you. Then, I mean the squire and doctor shall find the stuff, and shall help us get it aboard by powers, and then we'll see. If I were to assure all of you, sons of the double Dutchman, I'd have Captain Smollett navigate us halfway back again before I struck. Why, we're all seamen aboard here, I should think, said the lad, Dick. We're all forecastle hands, you mean, snapped Silver. We can steer a course, but who's to set one? That's what you all gentlemen split on. And first and last, and if I had my way, I'd have Captain Smollett work for us into the trades at least, and then we'd have no blessed miscalculations, and a spoonful of water a day. But I know the sort you are. I'll finish 'em with the island. And soon the blunt's on board, and pity it is, but you'll never be happy until you're drunk. Split my sides, and I'll have a sick heart to sail with the likes of you. Easy all, Long John, cried Israel. Who's a crossing of you? Why, how many tall ships, think ye, now that I have seen laid abroad? Aboard, not abroad, aboard. And how many brisk lads drying in the sun at execution dock, said Silver. And for all this same hurry, you hear me? I've seen a thing or two at sea, I have, and you will have only lay your course, and pint to windward. Rid your carriages, you would. But now I know you'll have your mouthful of rum tomorrow and go hang. Everybody knowed you was the kind of chap like John, but there's others as could hand and steer as well as you, said Israel. They liked a bit of fun, they did, and they weren't so high and dry nohow. Burp, but took to their fling, like jolly companions, every one. So, said Silver. Well, and where are they now? Pew was that sort, and he died a beggar man. Flint was, and he died of rum in Savannah. And there was sweet crew, they was, only where are they? But, asked Dick, when do we lay him athwart? What are we to do with them anyhow? There's a man for me, cried Cook admiringly. That's what I call business. Well, what would you think, huh? Put 'em ashore like maroons? Would you have been England's way? Or cut 'em down like that much pork? That you would have been Flint's or Billy Bones? Oh, Billy was the man for that, cried Israel. Dead men don't bite, said he. Well, he's dead hisself. And he knows the long and the short of it now. If ever rough hand come to port, it was Billy. Right you are, said Silver, rough and ready. But mark you here, I'm an easy man, and I'm quite the gentleman. He says you, and it's a time it's serious. Duty, again with 2 O's, is duty, mates. I'm thinking it's poop. I'm going with poop. Poop is poop, mates. And I give my vote death. When I'm in Parliament and riding in my coach, I don't want none of these sea lawyers and the captains are coming home unlooked for like the devils at prayers. What is it I say? But when the time comes, why, let her rip. John, said the coxswain, you're a man! Exclamation point. You'll say so, Israel, when you see, said Silver. Only one thing I claim. I claim Trelawney. I'll wring his calf's head off his body with these hands, Dick, he added, breaking off. You just jump up like a sweet lad and get me an apple, and wet my pipe like. Oh boy, they're going to find this boy in the apple thing. Here we go. You may fancy the terror I was in. Oh, I should have leapt out and run for it if I had found the strength, but my limbs and heart alike misgave me. I heard Dick begin to rise, and then someone seemingly stopped him, and the voice of Hans proclaimed, stow that. Don't you get sucking off bilge, John. Let's have a go of the rum. Dick, said Silver, I trust you. I've a gauge on the keg, mind. There's the key. You fill a pankin and bring it up. Terrified as I was, I could not help thinking to myself that this must have been how Mr. Arrow got the strong waters that destroyed him. Dick was gone but a little while, and during his absence, Israel spoke straight into the crook's ear. Oh, it was a word or two that I could catch, but and yet I gathered some important news, for besides other scraps that tended to the same purpose, this whole clause was audible. Not another man of them, and them'll jine. Hence, what does that mean? Let's look up Jine. Not another man of them will jine. A great teacher who has attained libertarian from karma. Okay. Don't know what that means. Hence, there will still faithful men on board. When Dick returned, one after another, the trio took the pankin and drank, one to luck, the other with a here's to old Flint, and Silver himself saying in a kind of song, here's to ourselves to hold your luff, plenty of prizes and plenty of duff. Then a sort of brightness fell upon me in a barrel, and looking up, I found the moon had risen and was silvering to the mizzen top and shining white on the luff of the foresail, and almost at the same time, the voice of the lookout shouted, land ho! Next chapter, Council of War. There was a great rush of feet across the deck. Oh, I could hear people tumbling up from the cabin and at the forecastle, and slipping in an instant outside my barrel, I dived behind the foresail, made a double toward the stern, and Bert came out upon the open deck in time to join Hunter and Dr. Livesey in the rush for the weather bow. None of that made sense to me. Here, I'm just imagining they're just running around on a boat. There, all hands were already congregated. A belt of fog had lifted almost simultaneously with the appearance of the moon. Away to the southwest of us, we saw 2 low hills, about a couple of miles apart, and rising behind one of them, a third and higher hill, whose peak was still buried in the fog. All 3 seemed sharp and conical in figure. So much I saw, almost in a dream, that for I had not yet recovered from my horrid fear of a minute or two before, and then I heard the voice of Captain Smollett issuing orders. The all-caps Hispaniola was laid a couple of points nearer to the wind and now sailed a course that would just clear the island on the east. Now, men, said the captain, when all had sheeted home, has any one of you ever seen that island ahead? I have, sir, said Silver. I've watered there with the trader I was a cook in. The anchorage is on the south, behind an islet, I fancy, said the captain. Yes, sir, Skeleton Island they call it. It were a main place for pirates once, and a hand we all had on board knowed all their names for it. That hill to the nor'ard, they call the foremast hill, and there are 3 hills in a row running southward, fore, main, and mizzen, sir. But the main, that was the biggin, with the cloud on it, they casually calls the spyglass, by reason of a lookout they kept when they were on the anchorage cleaning. For it's there that they clean their ships, sir, asking your pardon. I have a chart there, says Captain Smollett. See if it's the place. Long John's eyes burned in his head as he took the chart. Oh, but the fresh look of the paper, I knew he was doomed to disappoint. This was not a map we found in Billy Bones' chest, but an accurate copy, a complete in all things, names and heights and surroundings, with the single exception of the red crosses and the written notes. Sharp, as must have been his annoyance, Silver had the strength of mind to hide it. Oh, yes, sir, said he. This is the spot, to be sure, and very prettily drawn out. Who might have done that, I wonder? The pirates were too ignorant, I reckon. Here it is, Captain Kidd's anchorage, just the name of my shipmate called it. There's a strong current runs along the south, and then away nor'ard, up the west coast, right as you are, sir, says he, to haul your wind and keep the weather of the island. Leastways, if such was your intention to enter and careen, there is no better place for it than these waters. Well, thank you, my man, said Captain Smollett. I'll ask you later on to give us help. You may go. Well, I was surprised at the coolness for which John avowed his knowledge of the island, and I owned I was half frightened when he saw him drawing near to myself. Oh, he did not know, to be sure, that I had overheard the counsel from the apple barrel, and yet I was by this time taken to such horror of his cruelty, duplicity, and power that I could scarce conceal a shudder when he had laid his hand upon my arm. He says, this is a sweet spot, this island, a sweet spot for a lad to get ashore on. Oh, you'll bathe. Why is he bringing that up? And you'll climb trees. And you'll hunt goats. You will. And you'll get aloft on them hills like a goat yourself. Why, it makes me young again. I was going to forget my timber leg, I was. Oh, it's a pleasant thing to be young and to have 10 toes. God, that's sad. And you may lay to that. When you want to get a bit of exploring, I just ask old John, and he'll put up a snack for you to take along. And clapping me in the friendliest way upon the shoulder, he hobbled off forward and went below. Captain Smollett, the squire, and Dr. Livesey were talking together on the quarterdeck, and anxious as I was to tell them my story, I durst not interrupt them openly. While I was still casting about in my thoughts to find some probable excuse, Dr. Livesey called me to his side, and he had his pipe below, and he, being a slave to tobacco, he meant that I would fetch it. But as soon as I was near enough to speak, and not to be overheard, I broke immediately. Doctor, let me speak. Get the captain, the squire down to the cabin, and make some pretense to send for me. I have terrible news. The doctor changed his countenance a little. By the next moment, he was master of himself. Thank you, Jim, he said quite loudly. That was all I wanted to know, as if he had asked me a question. And with that, he turned on his heel and rejoined the other two. They spoke together for a little, and though none of them started or raised their voice or so much as whistled, it was plain enough that Dr. Livesey had communicated my request, for the next thing that I heard was that the captain was giving an order to Job Anderson. Is it Job? Probably Job. Who knows? And all hands were piped on deck. My lads, said Captain Smollett, I have a word to say to you. This land that we have sighted is the place that we have been sailing for. Mr. Trelawney, being a very open-handed gentleman, as we all know, has just asked me a word or two. And as I was able to tell him that every man on board had done his duty, alow and aloft, as I never asked to see it done better, why, he and I and the doctor are going below to the cabin to drink your your health and luck. Not suspicious or weird. And you'll have grog served out for you to drink our health and luck. Just don't come downstairs. I'll tell you what I think of this. I think it handsome. And if you think as I do, you'll give a good sea cheer for the gentleman that does it. Well, the cheer followed, and there was a matter, of course, but it rang out so full and hearty that I confess I could hardly believe that some of these men were plotting for our blood. One more cheer for Captain Smollett, cried Long John, when our first hand had subsided, and this also was given with a will. On top of that, the three gentlemen went below, and not long after, word was sent for that Jim Hawkins was wanted in the cabin. Well, I found them all three seated around the table, a bottle of Spanish wine and some raisins, not pickles, before them, and the doctor, smoking away, and with his wig on his lap, weird, and that I knew was a sign that he was agitated when he takes his wig off. You know he's pissed when he takes the wig off. The stern window was open, for it was a warm night, and you could see the moon shining behind the ship's wake. "Now, Hawkins," said the squire, "you have something to say? Speak up." Well, I did as I was bid, and as short as I could make it, I told the whole details of Silver's conversation. Nobody interrupted me till I was done, nor did any of the three men of them make so much as a movement, but they kept their eyes upon my face, from first to last. "Jim," said Dr. Livesey, "take a seat." And they made me sit down at the table beside them and poured out a glass of wine for me. What is he, 12? Filled my hands with raisins, weird, no pickles, they won't share the pickles with the child. And all three, one after another, and each with a bow, drank my good health and their service to me. For my luck and courage. "Now, Captain," said the squire, "you were right, and I was wrong. I own myself an ass. And I await your orders." "No more an ass than I, sir," returned the captain. "I never heard of a crew that meant mutiny what was showed signs before. For any man that had an eye in his head to see the mischief and take steps according. But this crew," he added, "beats me." "Captain," said the doctor, "with your permission, that's Silver, a very remarkable man." "Well, he'd look remarkably well upon a yardarm, sir," returned the captain. "But this is talk. This don't lead to anything. I see 3 or 4 points, and with Mr. Trelawney's permission, I'll name them." "You, sir, are captain. It is for you to speak," said Mr. Trelawney grandly. "First point," began Mr. Smollett. "We must go on, because we can't turn back. If I gave my word to go about, they'd rise at once. Second point, we have time before us, at least until the treasure's found. Third point, there are faithful hands. Now, sir, it's got to come to blows sooner or later, and what I propose is to take time by the forelock, as is saying, and come to blows some fine day when they least expect it. We can count, I take it, on your own home servants, Mr. Trelawney." "As upon myself," declared the squire. "3, reckoned the captain. "Ourselves make 7, counting Hawkins here. Now, about the honest hands." "Oh, most likely Trelawney's old men," said the doctor. "Those he had picked up for himself before we lit on Silver." "Nay," replied the squire. "Hands was one of mine." "Oh, I did not think that I could trust the hands," said the captain. "Oh, and to think that they were all Englishmen," broke out the squire. "Oh, sir, I find it in my heart to blow the shit up." "Shit up?" I said shit. I meant ship. It's been a long read. "Well, gentlemen," said the captain, "the best thing that I could say is not much. We may lay to, if you please, and keep a bright lookout. It's trying out a man, I know. It would be pleasanter to come to blows, but there's no help for it till we know our men. Lay to and whistle for wind, that's my view. Jim here," said the doctor, "can help us more than anyone. The men are not shy with him, and Jim is a noticing lad. Hawkins, I but prodigious faith in you. Prodigious. I put prodigious. Prodigious. I just looked up how to pronounce it. I still can't pronounce it. I think I'm having a stroke. Faith in you," added the squire. I began to feel pretty desperate about this, and I felt another helpless, and yet, by an odd train of circumstances, it was indeed through me that safety came. In the meantime, I talked as we please. There are only 7 out of 26 of whom we could rely on. But out of those 7, one was a boy. So that the grown men on our side were 6 to 19. Well, that seems like a pretty good place to stop. Why don't we, head on down to the smoking room, where perhaps we can open up the chimp's skull that I have there that is filled with cigarettes, and have one, and talk about what the hell we just read. God, there's just more planes. Ever since I moved my whole situation up here, it's just been nothing but planes flying overhead, and it gets on the show. Oh, God damn it. My wife put these birds in here back when we got married. Back before we even got married, she just moved in. Oh, why don't you put birds in your little smoking room? And I don't know how they're still alive. They should all have tiny lung cancers. What did we learn? Go on, open up that chimp skull. I know that the head comes off the top. That's right. You got to unscrew it. There you go. Yeah, look at all those cigarettes in there, huh? Go ahead, have one. Have a good time. Chapters 8 through 12. Well, they're on their way. And all the cutthroatiness and charming swashbuckling gives way to boredom. And, oh, God, that's loud. And, people being pathetically drunk once they're stuck out at sea. But boy, oh boy, people love Jim. Knowing what we know about Drake, the idea of a major player taking a shine to a young kid is kind of unnerving. But for Jim and the author, that doesn't seem very concerning. These chapters begin to show us the shifting power dynamics, changing between what Jim was used to on land as they sail further away. Trelawney even realizes this when he laments that he should have never trusted the crew. When Jim overhears the plan while eating apples in a barrel like a rat, we're given the full scope of how these social structures collapse in small groups. Instead of assuming authority and being charming and persuasive with the lower rungs of the hierarchy seems to matter a lot more. The best example of this is Long John Silver, who is friendly, able to guide people to his own goals, and seems to have a little bit of a dark side. He only wants what Trelawney already has, an easy life. But for him to attain it, he has to work much harder. The author does a good job fleshing out the character of Long John Silver, where he masks his true feelings and motivations while constantly managing everyone's expectations. And I'm sure he'll turn out to be an even more horrible person as the book goes on, but we'll find that out, I don't know, some other time. Like I said, I've been 2-week gap because life gets in the way. We'll see you the next time I come back, but thanks for coming, and I'll probably see you next week. Well, it appears you found me in the part of the podcast I hate the most, where I tell you all about the places on the internet where you can find me. You can tell I hate this because of the sound effects making it sound like a stormy night in the drawing room of the damned. Now, there's that. Are you cool? I like cool people. It's the reason why I got involved in this business to begin with, just to meet cool people, not losers. So if you're cool, feel free to go over to my website, nuzzlehouse.com. But if you go there, you get to hear some of the other stuff that I and my wife work on, like the Radio Mystery Theater show, where we try to recreate the same show that used to be on in the 70s, but they don't make any episodes anymore. So we make our own, and we just steal all their commercials. And also, just stay in the curious mind, we made a Christmas album. If you go to our link tree, you can see that we made a Christmas album. It's the first thing we did after getting married, which I think everyone should do when they get married, is start talking about the Christmas album they're going to make. And we're working on a new show where we give relationship advice by reading paranormal smut. And since I think you might be cool, you can always just email me directly, glenn.nuzzles@gmail.com. But don't email if you're a nerdlinger or a dork. Now, back to business. I can't believe I drank all of them already. There's got to be one left.